Hello guys, it's the Red Shadow back with my next pickup video. This is November's pickups. I got a pretty decent stack here, just like I had assumed. I'm going to just say right now, because I can only remember that after the last video I said something that I was going to try to address here now. I think, anyway, and I don't remember what it was, so I'm just going to have to let it go, and if my curiosity gets the better of me, I'll look back on the last video and see what I was talking about. But I'd rather just go ahead and jump into this stack of games to show off. I don't have any movies this time around, but I have a bunch of games, and I'm going to start with a game for a console I haven't picked up anything new for in a long time. So that is the Silent Hill HD collection for PlayStation 3. Now I know this is not a preferable way to play these games. This is Silent Hill 2 and 3 that were from PlayStation 2 era. I had a decent, I didn't have every Silent Hill game I would want, but I had a pretty decent Silent Hill collection. But a couple months back, right after I got back to work, but I was definitely needing some money, and I figured one of the things I had in my collection I could get some funds if I sold was my Silent Hill games. So sadly, I sold Silent Hill 1, 2, the two greatest hits that had the content, the Restless Memories or something, the content that was on the Xbox version. I sold Silent Hill 3, 4, The Room, Silent Hill Origins. I think that was it. It was 6 games, so 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, and Origins. Yeah, so that was the 6 games that I sold. I regret it, believe me, I regret it, but like I said, I needed money. I'd been unemployed for several months and a lot of stuff going on, so I had to figure out a way to get some of that cash, and those ended up getting sacrificed. The biggest regret for me, though, is the fact that Silent Hill 1 is the only game in the whole series that I've ever played and beat. I've played a little bit of 2. I've actually sampled 2, 3, 4, and Origins. I just never completed any of them. So I thought, what was a way that I could maybe get a chance to go back and fill in some of those blanks? And I remembered this collection. I know it's controversial. I know that they made changes, like taking the fog out, when the fog in the Silent Hill games are such a big part of it, and doing new voiceover work, and like the ports just being glitchy and whatnot. But this was relatively cheap. I got it from Video Games Plus. It wasn't all that super expensive, and it's nice to add stuff to the collection for PS3 and 360 and some of those older consoles that I don't touch a lot. And so I went ahead and just did it. So, be that as it may, it's not perfect. Maybe someday I'll have a Silent Hill collection of the original games again. I don't know for sure. At this point with those games, I'd be perfectly happy just having them in some capacity to stream them or digitally. But like I said, this for now will work for a couple of those games, and then I can judge for myself how bad these ports may actually be. Okay, so that was the one and only non-PS4 game. If you're new here, I collect a lot of PS4. I'm nearing or somewhere around 800 games, and I'm always looking for new stuff to add to that collection. So everything else that I have to show is, of course, PS4 games. The first 3 PS4 games I'm going to show were all cheap games that I picked up off Walmart.com. They were all $9.99 a piece. They all come from a publisher called GS2 Games. They're not known for quality, but that's why I picked these games up for so cheap, because if they're not great, I didn't spend a lot of money on them. So the first thing to show here is a game called 41 Hours. This is some sort of a first-person narrative shooter style game. I guess like maybe Far Cry or BioShock, when you imagine it being first-person shooter, but it's not Call of Duty when it's actually trying to tell a story. That's what this game advertises itself to be. I saw somebody had picked this up on Facebook, and I remembered that it had popped up in my Google searches occasionally. And when I saw what the price was, I just went ahead and grabbed it. We'll see if it'll be any good. But that was the first one that I got from this GS2 Games. Second one that I have here is a game called Star Sand. This one just sort of, like, the cover art is kind of basic, but it also kind of caught my eye. The premise of this game is that it's basically a survival game, sort of like the Forest or Stranded Deep. Now I can't really think of any of the other good examples that I had for it, but those kind of games, that's what this is in a nutshell, only it takes place in a desert. You're going to find yourself in this world. You're going to have to get yourself, like, supplies, resources. You can craft things like weapons. You'll have to try to keep yourself, I would assume things like keep yourself fed and hydrated and all those little survival game mechanics that are always in these types of games. Only that, like I said, it takes place in the desert instead of the forest, which is in a forest. Stranded Deep, which is like on the ocean and on like little deserted islands. So that was why I thought I'd give this one a try. Also, once again, $9.99 on Walmart.com like 2 weeks ago. It felt like it would be worth it for a cheap price. And then the last of the GS2 games that I got off Walmart.com is Beholder 3. So this is a third in a series of games that are, to me, on the back, it looks like it's side-scrolling. You're in like a house or a mansion or something like that, and I think you go around from room to room, and you're looking for clues, and you're trying to like solve little mysteries, and you have to, solve puzzles and use some strategy in what you do. Let's see, it says, when a high-ranking security officer saves you from prison, you end up a pawn in her schemes. Now you must eliminate anyone standing in the way of her secret plans and try to get your life back while working 2 jobs. No tenant, employee, or superior is safe from your spying, so you've got spying aspects to this game. I just thought it looked interesting. All of the games, the aesthetic, I don't know how well the screenshots here will come through on this, but there's like, all the little characters are like completely black, like they look like silhouettes, but you can see their clothes and their suits and stuff like that. It just seems very like mysterious, and when it mentions the spy plot, I thought, yeah, that's kind of cool. Once again, $9.99. And if it's any good, the first 2 games I think are both available on PS4, so I may try to track those down as well. Okay, so I had those separated out separately because they were my weird cheap Walmart.com purchases. Now I'm going to jump into the only 3 games that I have from like the limited print companies. 2 from Limited Run, and this first one is from Strictly Limited. And this one is interesting to me. This is a game that's called Air Twister. And this is the new project from Yu Suzuki, who, amongst other things, is responsible for one of my all-time favorite games, Shenmue. But this is basically a modern version of his Space Harrier game series with, a different story, different protagonists, different art style. And this is from Strictly Limited, as I mentioned before. This is a Strictly Limited release number 96, and I got copy 205 out of 500. So very, very limited. As far as I know, there was 500 individual copies like this, and then there were 500 copies that went into some sort of like a special edition package. So if you know Space Harrier was an old like arcade game or early console game that had you controlling this guy with like a jetpack, and the perspective would be behind him in like a third-person mode, and he would be floating on the screen, and you could move the character around, and you could shoot at things that are coming at you from the horizon, and that was basically it. It's like a weird shooter game, but instead of being in a spaceship or a vehicle of some sort, you're like a jetpack wearing flying person with their laser gun. And this one here has a female protagonist, but it's essentially the same kind of gameplay. This isn't necessarily gameplay that stands out for me. I sometimes play Space Harrier. I think that's one of the arcade games you can play in Shenmue. I think you can play it in other games or game collections. I've played it before. And it's like no real big deal to me. For me, this was about supporting Yu Suzuki, because I want him to be able to complete the Shenmue story. And Shenmue 3, I still haven't finished playing my replay of the first Shenmue, so I haven't even started or played 2 and 3. But I know that 3 doesn't wrap up the story, so I want you to have whatever support he can get for those of us who are waiting for Shenmue the story to get completed. So I'll buy this and I'll play it and have some fun with it. But more than anything, it was just put it on my shelf. Another cool thing about this was the PS5 and Switch versions of this are getting normal retail releases, but the PS4 versions are only available from Strictly Limited. So it's just kind of cool. It feels a little bit more of a collector's piece just due to that fact. All right, my 2 limited run pickups, and they're both cool collections of older games. So the first thing I have here to show is the Castlevania Advance Collection. This is 3 games from the Game Boy Advance and I think a Super Nintendo game in the Castlevania series all together in one package. The games are... Boy, it's a lot darker on this cover and this old man's eyes are starting to get bad. This is Circle of the Moon, Harmony of Dissonance, Aria of Sorrow, and those are the GBA games. And then there's Castlevania Dracula X, which I believe is a Super Nintendo game. And I got the Harmony of Dissonance cover, but apparently that's like the one of those 3 GBA games that people don't care much for. But I don't know, I just thought this cover was awesome. I don't know much about the Castlevania series. That's why I've picked up all of these so far. There was the Castlevania Anniversary Collection that had a bunch of the like 8 and 16-bit games. Then there was the Castlevania Requiem. That was Symphony of the Night and Rondo of Blood. Symphony of the Night PS1 game. Rondo of Blood was on, I think, one of the cartridge-based consoles, Super Nintendo, Genesis, something like that. And then, of course, these being GBA games and one more Super Nintendo game. I don't know if we're going to get any more collections of Castlevania, stuff like that, but I'm super happy to have these. As a Metroidvania fan, especially of Super Metroid, I want to, at least have a chance to play some of those games that that genre was born from. So that's why I got that one. And then the other one that I got, and also, by the way, both of these were pre-orders from, like, say, summertime that have already shown up. I'm still waiting on some older pre-orders from Limited Run, but I have to say they've gotten better over this last year. They really upset a lot of people. I wasn't really all that upset. I had the one game, Virtua Verse, that the messaging was weird, but now I understand that everybody was experiencing that same bullshit. So I'm not all that, triggered by it like a lot of people have been. But it's I'm super happy to have some of these games show up only a couple of months after pre-order now. So this is the other one. This is the Jurassic Park Classic Games Collection. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games from Game Boy, original Game Boy, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and Sega Genesis, brought over to PS4, and then of course there was like Switch and Xbox versions. This one, I've already opened this one to check it out. Somebody wanted to know, if all of the games were directly on the disc. Unfortunately, I don't know for sure because, of course, as soon as I popped it in, there was an update. So I don't know what that update entailed. But I played for an hour or two on some of these different little games. And they're cool, they're fun, and historically I enjoy having this kind of stuff in the collection. I didn't play any of these games back in the day. I mean, maybe I rented them with my friends, one like the Super Nintendo stuff. But none of this is like nostalgically appealing to me, other than the fact that I love Jurassic Park. But for Jurassic Park games, I played like one or two of the PS1 JP games, and I had a little bit more fun with those. This stuff that I played on here was difficult. Just, relentless. A couple of lives, you die pretty quickly. You got a rewind feature, and I enjoy that kind of stuff, but I do tend to kind of forget that I have it. And so I just played it for a little while. My dad was even here and watched a little bit of it. I don't know that I'll revisit it much in the future, but it's like I said, historically, I like having that kind of stuff in the collection. And if I do ever get the itch to play it, then I will be able to. Alright, so now we're going to move into basically just the rest of the normal, well, mostly normal releases that I picked up. The first one is one I've been watching for a while. This is like a first-person horror game that I've wanted to check out, that I had heard relatively good things about. And then the last time I really started doing research for it, I read some people who said it was not all that great. But this is, I think it's Charon's Staircase, or Charon's. It's CHARON''S. So it's hard to say. It's basically just a first-person horror walking simulator style game. I'm sure there's some puzzles and a lot of narrative. I don't think there's any combat, but I could be wrong about that. And I was just watching it on a couple of different websites, just waiting for it to get to a decent price, and then I finally found it for 20 or less, I think. So grab that one. Here's one that I was really looking forward to. The moment that I saw it advertised, and I was super happy that this one was coming to PS4, because I thought it might just end up being a current gen release. This is Under the Waves, and I thought, yeah, there it is. This is a Quantic Dreams published game. It's not made by David Cage and Quantum Dream, but it's kind of, it's a narrative, it's another narrative driven style game where some guy whose job is I think doing underwater research, and he's in a little submarine, and he's in a little underground or an underwater facility, and he struggles with, like his life and his family. I think it immersive underwater experience, gripping story about love and loss, and a mystery to uncover, are the little bullet points for this one. So that kind of stuff I'm a sucker for. I like a little bit of a storytelling, but I also like it when it's framed in something that's going to be kind of mysterious, and maybe even, lean a little into the horror and terror elements. But I also like that I'm guessing there must be a decent sized manual in this, because this is a heavier game case than the other games so far. So there's a manual or some other goodies inside of that one. Speaking of some narrative-driven style games, this next one, I've been told, plays a lot like a Telltale style game, and I think that's because some of the people who made this one came from Telltale games, and it's also centered in a property that I enjoy. But that is Star Trek Resurgence. I don't know what the time frame is on this, because I'm pretty picky about Star Trek stuff. Give me Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager era, and not original, and not any of the stuff that came after. But this just looks too cool, and to tell a story in the Star Trek universe is something that I think we've been kind of missing here lately. We need more games in Star Trek, especially the classic stuff for me, which is, like I said, Next Generation and basically 80s and 90s Star Trek. So I'm hoping this will be as much fun as I've heard. I've heard some good reviews from people who are into Star Trek. And then I have another, like narrative-driven style game, and I think this is a little bit more visual novel, but this is Werewolf the Apocalypse: Heart of the Forest. So I'm collecting the Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf the Apocalypse games, especially that are on PS4, and I came across this one. It just came out recently within the last month or so. Visual novel story. Says explore the myths and monsters of Europe's last primeval wilderness in a rich story from the World of Darkness universe, which I believe World of Darkness covers werewolf and vampire. I'm more into the Vampire the Masquerade stuff, but I want to try the werewolf stuff because I know that it's like a shared universe type thing. And plus, I don't know, the aesthetic of the cover there is really cool. The black and the red and all the werewolf stuff does it for me. Now, this is the other Werewolf the Apocalypse game that I'm aware of that's available on PS4, and that is Earthblood. This was a game that I bought off of eBay. I somehow or another missed that it was an open copy. It's not that big of a deal, and especially with it being a game that didn't review very well, even though I've wanted to get it and play it ever since it came out, despite the reviews. I guess I can be happy that it was a cheap copy in case I don't care much for it. But had to get that. And I got a little bit of a story to tell on this. And judge me if you will, that's fine. But I got these two games together on one very cheap eBay listing. So this is Persona 5 Royal and Persona 5 Strikers. Excuse me. So I own Persona 5. I have the... well, now I'm not going to be able to remember the name, and it's over there somewhere, but it's the special edition. It's like the Take My Heart or something Heart edition. Big box set. I'd never played a Persona game before I bought it, but it wasn't too expensive around the time that it came out, or around the time I got my PS4 anyway. And so I just took a chance on it, and I popped the game in and I played it once. Not just one day, but like for, I don't know, maybe a week or two, I was going in and playing it here and there. And I was enjoying it, but I knew that it was a massive game, and I prioritized some other games in front of it, like I've done with so many games. And then it ended up falling into the backlog, and eventually I figure I'll go back to it. But in the meantime, since that happened, they put out this Persona 5 Royal, which is the same game but with added content. I don't know if it doesn't really explain on here. But it adds some stuff to it and kind of changes some aspects of the story. But it's, I guess, kind of considered the definitive version of the game. Why wouldn't you want the same great game you loved before with additional content? But what is weird is, so this comes out, and now everybody says, hey, this is the version of Royal to play. But then afterwards, and this is like JRPG stuff, afterwards they come out with Persona 5 Strikers, and Strikers is a Musou game. It's one of the games where you like go in and you have a whole bunch of enemies on the screen, and it's kind of all out combat. And this, and I hope I'm remembering it right, that it's a Musou style game, but this is a spin-off of the original version of Persona 5. What I have been told is, and correct me if I'm wrong, or look into it for yourself if you care, but you want to play Persona 5, the original version, then you want to play Strikers, then you want to come back and play Royal to get that extra content, because the extra content kind of conflicts with Strikers. So if you play Royal and then play Strikers, I guess you're going to be confused and a bit lost. And I have to admit right now I'm kind of confused and lost just trying to absorb all of that. There is another new kind of like spin-off Persona 5 title, Persona 5 Tactica. I'm not going to get that one. That's a tactics-based game, and I just don't care for those. So I'm not going to be adding that one to my collection for sure, unless it was super cheap. I would never even try to play it if I did buy it. Oh, but the story that I had to tell about this, and then like I said, tell me if I'm a bad person for this or not. But this was a cheap eBay thing, and the only reason why I even knew that it was cheap or that the listing existed was because somebody showed it in one of the Facebook gaming groups that I'm a part of, and they said, "Hey guys, should I get these games? They're cheap. What do y'all think?" And of course everybody was like, "Yes, those are good games. The price is good. Do it." And by the time I saw the post, it had been almost two days since they had posted it. But curiosity got the better of me, and I went to eBay and I looked up that listing, and it was still there. And without hesitation, I was like, buy it now, because I've been wanting to get both of these Persona 5 games in my collection. I'd been holding out for cheap versions of brand new copies. These are opened, but $20 for the two of these. I feel like I kind of pulled that deal out from underneath the guy who shared it on Facebook, but it had been almost 48 hours since he had posted about it. Like, in my opinion, if you haven't pulled the trigger on it just yet, you weren't going to do it, unless it was one of those, I needed to wait until I got paid. But then I would say, why in the world would you share it in any kind of a video game group? So, like I said, I'm probably the asshole in this situation, but what can you do? Okay, let's move on. We're down to the last couple of things here. 4 more games to show. So here we have something that's very Persona-like, at least in terms of its aesthetic. This is a game that was shown in one of Sony's showcase events over the last couple of years, and everybody was kind of like, "Wow, this is kind of cool. We can kind of get into this." And I thought the same thing. And then when I found out that it was going to come out physically and it would only be $30, I thought, well, yeah, that's pretty much going to be a day one for me. This is Eternights. I think that's the correct way to pronounce it. Some people want to say Eternights, but I'm pretty sure officially it has been pronounced Eternights. But whatever the case may be, this is kind of a silly, Japanese animated RPG. I've heard for myself some of the dialogue and voice acting, and it's kind of cringy. But I don't really care. It's, as far as I know, this was a passion project game that was done by one guy. Now I only know the one guy. I don't know if he alone did the game or he had a team, but it was definitely this one particular person's game that they wanted to put together, and the fact that they got it shown on a Sony showcase it put it in front of people like me who may not have even paid any attention to it otherwise. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing if it's any good, seeing just how crazy it is. It's apparently full of a lot of cursing in situations that don't really call for it. And the voice acting is cheesy, and it's both a little bit of a romance and dating sim / sci-fi anime thing. So we'll see how it woes. And here's one that I was super excited to finally get. Boy, this game for PS4 would not reduce in price at all. The game hasn't been out for a year yet, but typically games like this they'll already end up being $20 or $30 6 months into their life cycle. So I was surprised that it took so long, but I finally got this on a Black Friday deal for $35. That's still not even the price I would want, but I was starting to worry that this one was going to end up getting out of hand like it was no longer going to be sold at normal retailers, and then it would start getting expensive. And when you see what it is, you'll probably think, well, that's crazy. But PS4 Dead Island 2, hard to find this for less than just standard retail $60 or $70. Like, this was one of the first PS4 games after the PS5 came out that was priced at $70, which I think is kind of bullshit. I don't see why they think that it's cool to take the pricing scheme for the new console and apply it to the previous console. But games like this, Atomic Heart, and Evil West, all three of these are games I've been trying to get for PS4 and have struggled to find them for less than $60 or $70. Atomic Heart did get a Black Friday sale price of $40, but I got this one because it was $35 and because I got a freebie with it along with the game itself from Best Buy. Dead Island 2, and this is the Day 1 edition, came with a free Steelbook. Now, I'm not necessarily a Steelbook collector, but getting something like this for free was pretty cool, and so I went ahead and did it. It was funny, though. It's just a listing on Best Buy's website, and it said Dead Island 2, $34.99, Black Friday event. I'm like, yes, that looks cool. And it says free items included. I said, ooh, what's that? Steelbook. I'm sold. Click buy, click for shipping, and then I get notification that my order is ready to pick up, and I'm like, I selected shipping. I don't have ready access to a vehicle these days, so I can't just drive down to Best Buy, and it's not that far from me, but I'm not going to walk to it. So I'm like, I can't, what? And I go and look at my order, and it says the Steelbook is ready to be picked up. I'm like, well, what? That's even weirder. That's my free item that comes with my game. If I order the game to be shipped to my house, shouldn't the free item ship to my house too? And I got worried that I wasn't going to get my Steelbook, but there was an option on their website to switch even the Steelbook to shipping, no additional charge. But it was also funny because then I got the game one day, and like a day or two later, I got the Steelbook in the mail. Okay, the last two items. These are probably the two things that I was looking forward to the most this month. And unfortunately, this first one's going to have a little bit of a story with it. But this is Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name. This is currently the newest Like a Dragon / Yakuza game to come out. And this, as you can see, is in Chinese. So I pre-ordered this from PlayAsia because at the time it was the only place where I was seeing any kind of listings for it. And mind you, it said temporary artwork or artwork not final or whatever, but it showed in English the whole 9 yards. It was going to be an English version because for whatever fucking reason, even though the last game, Like a Dragon Ishin, and the next game, Infinite Wealth, those are both getting, or in the case of Ishin, it got an NTSC release, a North American release for PS4 in America, and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is going to get one in North America. Gaiden, this little in-between project, originally was supposed to be a DLC, and it was kind of expanded to become its own little game. Maybe not as beefy as some of the other Yakuza and Like a Dragon titles, but still it was in there. It's still going to be a game, and it was getting its own release. Why they couldn't do a North American release, I have no freaking idea. It makes no sense. But anyway, PlayAsia was offering up one that they showed in their artwork as having English on the cover. And see, I don't care one way or another overall about this. The picky or OCD side of me wants English, wants to be able to put it on the shelf and you can read what it is on the side. But as long as the game enables me to see English, and in the case of the Yakuza / Like a Dragon games, I gave in to the whole subtitle thing. I played Yakuza 0 earlier this year. I accepted the subtitles. They talked in Japanese. I was fine with that. But as long as I can see subtitles, and as long as the menus are in English, fine, whatever. But like I said, it was teed up on PlayAsia as being English on the cover, despite the caveat of artwork not final. And then a couple of days before it was supposed to release, I got an email from PlayAsia, and it said, "We're sorry, the game that you have pre-ordered is going to be the Chinese cover version. The cover will be in Chinese. It's not going to be in English." And they gave me the option to keep the pre-order and let it continue and just get the version that I get, cancel and get a refund, or cancel the pre-order and use the payment that I made for it on some other title, some other game or product from them. Well, I was just thinking to myself, if it's only going to be Chinese, that's fine. This is where I trusted, and I'm not knocking PlayAsia. I still love PlayAsia for so many different reasons. So I'm not knocking them, but I put my trust in them that this was the only version that they were going to have, / it was the only version that was going to come along. So I just said, yeah, I'll keep that pre-order. Send me this version. It's all good. And then within a few days, people were starting to say, oh, there's an English version. One person in one, I think, Discord server said that in Malaysia, there was a version that was all in English on the cover and the spine. And then I started to see messages and posts online from people who said that PlayAsia had emailed them and said, our initial batch basically was like Chinese covers, but we are receiving English version covers, and those people got the option to switch over to that. And then new listings for the game started to pop up of the English versions. And I had already, like I said, told them and committed to this, and it was already shipped to me, like it was already on its way. It's taken like close to 2 weeks for this to finally show up. So anyway, I guess the point of all this is just that it was a little bit of an adventure. Now, in some ways, I think this is kind of cool, although it's also kind of weird that it's Chinese language on a game set in Japan and in the hands of a dumb American white dude who doesn't speak either of those languages. But like I said, it's also Yakuza / Like a Dragon, and I don't really care about anything else other than give me menus in English and give me the subtitles, and I'll be happy with that. And for some, this might end up being a little bit of a collector's thing, but I don't really care about that. And I have a feeling that both versions would be collectible, because the English ones are the ones that people would want, and we don't know that there's going to be, a billion of those compared to the Chinese cover versions. So I think either way, either version could be collectible, but it's just that little OCD factor, and if I'd had the option to have some of this stuff in English, I definitely would have went that way. Okay, I'll shut up now about that and move on to the last game, and my most anticipated thing for this month, and that is Star Ocean, the Second Story R. This is the really cool sort of HD 2D remake of Star Ocean, the Second Story, although it's not the exact same kind of HD 2D that you'd come to know from Octopath Traveler and some of those kind of games. This was done in a slightly different style. But I just have to say, I'm just surprised and amazed and happy that this even came to be. This is one of a small handful of like PS1 JRPGs that I definitely missed. I own this game. I have played this game, but I only ever made it so far into it, and I'm still a JRPG noob after 25 years. But back then in the 90s, I was completely outclassed by these style of games that I could never really figure out how to build and gear up and level up and grind and do all that stuff that you need to get through boss battles in certain areas of games. So I only got a piece of this game, but I really enjoyed it. I really liked what I got to play. I liked the world, the premise, the characters, the whole Star Ocean series for me. Like, I own just about every one of the games, and it all came because of the very first one. So for this to get remade in the cool and unique way that it was done, I'm super happy about it. And you know, it's a Square Enix game, so I have to tell this little short story, I hope. The moment that this was shown in either a PlayStation event or a Nintendo Direct, I said, I'm buying that. And I'm going to pre-order it as soon as I possibly can. It's coming from Square Enix, and I can't put it past them to pull another fucking Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster disaster, and it just be limited or some bullshit. So I pre-ordered it from them right away. And boy, I made one little comment on a particular Discord server that some other people had already either gotten shipping notifications for their games or they'd already received their game, and it was an innocent little comment of, I'm just over here still waiting to hear about when mine comes. And somebody questioned, like, where did you get it, where did you pre-order it, or you know, what was the situation. Somehow or another, anyway, I told them that I ordered it directly from Square Enix. I did it the day that it popped up. I wasn't going to have another Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster thing. That was just expressing my frustration with that debacle. Not so much that I thought it was going to happen again. It was just I'm going to cover my ass, and it's better to be safe than sorry, and all that kind of stuff. And I got reamed by some moron on the internet. FOMO, you got FOMO'd, ha ha ha. People out here getting FOMO'd by Square Enix on a game that's going to be widely available. It's available at all the retailers. It's this and that. And every time I told them, I said, I didn't know that at the time. This was the first place that it popped up, and I just wasn't going to take any chances. And I just got bombarded by this imbecile over, you know, it's the internet, and that's what people do. But I'm still a little salty about that whole exchange. Like, why in the world would you, in a Discord server related to video games and collecting and playing games, would you shit on somebody for wanting to make sure that they can buy a game and play the game? All right, well, anyway, that's it for this November's pickups. December's pickups should be pretty cool too. I'm waiting on the only actual like Black Friday sale. Obviously, I got Dead Island 2 from a Black Friday sale, but that was before Thanksgiving when I ordered that. The actual, it's Black Friday and the weekend after stuff, I only ordered from one place, Video Games Plus, the company out of Canada that I've been getting a lot of games from. I got 6 games on that order coming in from them, and then I got a few other things, including some movies that are coming along soon. So I think December is going to be a fun one. I also imagine there'll probably be like some limited run and some of that kind of stuff that I have pending orders out there that'll probably show up this month as well. So I'm super happy. 2023 for me, collecting wise, has been one of the few positive and bright points of this year. So I'm happy to get some more stuff in and get across that 800 PS4 games mark too. That'll be fun. But I'm also asking the gaming gods and Sony and Limited Run and all you companies, excuse me, I'm going to get choked up over this. Please slow down and eventually stop. Let's all move to PS5. I want to get a PS5 and just buy the games that really, really matter. I don't want to. This is FOMO, I guess. Me wanting to have this really awesome not full set, but a full PS4 collection of games that mean something to me or look interesting or I want to discover. But like I said, in PS5 I'm not going to do that. So I just want some relief. I want to not I guess, have 20 games every month to show off. I'd rather have like 4 or 5 and some movies, and let my wallet rest a little bit. Okay, that's it. I'll shut up now. I'll see you guys in the next one.